Okay, so this video is going to have a lot of information. It's going to kind of be more technical than my previous videos, so be prepared for that. Okay, so if you are a Patreon member, the last Q&A I talked about this subject, and it is the 9 holograms that are currently active, some more than others, and how I received this information was in 2016. I received a message that I had no idea what it meant, and it said convergence of the 9 waves, and I had no idea what to do with that. So if you've listened to my previous videos or you're on Patreon, you know that how prevalent the Mayan energy had been working with me. I received Mayan holograms for months. And my great-great-great-grandfather, his tribe, Shawnee tribe, originally came from the Yucatan Peninsula. So I could be receiving some of the Mayan ancestry that way. So when I receive a message, I have to go and then do research and try to find information that resonates with that message. So when I started researching 9 waves, convergence of 9 waves and all that, I did find the information on it. So a lot of ancient cultures, the number 9 is very important. The Norse have the 9 worlds. There's a Chinese mythology that involves 9 dragons. And the Mayans also had this. They built many of their step temples with 9 levels, and they always depicted a type of dragon or snake energy. So I'm going to go over what these 9 levels are according to Mayan mythology, and it answered so many questions for me that I've had on this journey, like how did we go for millions of years being living in caves and huts and all that, and then in the last, oh my gosh, in the years since I've been alive, technology has come so far, and how did we come so far in such a little amount of time, yet we have been an evolving species for millions of years? Why was it so slow, and then all of a sudden we had an accelerated advance in our technologies? And so the 9 waves of creation answered those questions for me. So energy always moves in a sine wave, and if you don't know what a sine wave is, I will insert a picture. So even our seasons, why it's one season in the northern hemisphere and another in the southern hemisphere, is due to a sine wave. Energy comes in sine waves. It's all sine waves. And that is why ancient cultures worship snakes and dragons and everything that moved like a snake in a sine wave. So according to this Mayan 9 waves of creation, they are holograms that come in to promote evolution. So according to this theory, the first hologram was created 16.4 billion years ago, and that started with the hologram that would build cells, galaxies, planets, stars, etc. Okay, so that's the first hologram of creation. And the second hologram came in 820 million years ago, and that was to promote multicellular animals and the plants that these multicellular animals would need to eat to continue life and evolve. The third hologram came in at 41 million years ago, and that was for these animals to become an erect posture, bipedal movement, just the start of tool making, and the precursor to what we know now as Homo sapiens. The fourth hologram came in at 205 million years ago, and that was the early signs of the now Homo sapiens, humans. It was more advanced brain activity or usage of the brain. It was the discovery of fire. It was more advanced tool making, probably spearheads and things like that. Fifth hologram came in 103,000 years ago. And this was after what we would be considered humans. This is building of tribes and community coming together. It was development of a spirituality and the first signs of art being done. And again, even more advanced uses of tools for maybe grinding things, learning how to make clothing, changing one element into another for the purpose of the community. And it was also a hologram where it was that we were still in an equality. You can see that they honored animals, they honored the earth and all that. So we were still in probably an animistic culture. So the sixth hologram came in 3115 BC. So this is the hologram of polarization, duality, patriarchy, organized religion, war, but it was also the hologram for building civilization and structures and first signs of aqueducts and plumbing and making it more convenient and easier for humans to live. So people always say, well, why would there be a hologram of duality and polarity? And whenever there is a creation needed, there's a separation, and it causes like a friction, and that friction promotes growth. So if you've ever been in any type of like a twin flame or any type of relationship like that, and that friction and that separation promoted your own growth. So that's an example of what happened. But when these holograms come in, they come in waves, and there's days and there's nights. And so when we have a day, that's when we have these great civilizations that were built and thrived. And then when it started to go down in the night, or the lower end of the sine wave, is when these collapses happened and war breaks out and things like that. So it goes into a distortion. And whenever there's a distortion, that's when you see these messiahs or these advanced beings or ascended masters coming in to try to prevent people from falling so deep into the distortion of the night of the wave. And there's tons of people still running on this old hologram or matrix, and it's the sixth matrix. You can see it everywhere. And these wave matrices, the older they are, the longer these waves last. So the sixth wave is a cycle. I want to say a wave. It's constantly going, but one segment of a wave in the sixth wave lasts 788 years approximately. So we will be in the up wave for around 395 years. Then we will be in the down wave for another 395 years. So it's in a distortion. Unfortunately, right now we are in the night or the lower distortion wave of the sixth. That is why we have, Middle Eastern wars. We've been in this distortion, and we still have quite a ways to go before we go back out of the sixth wave. So we have lots of people still operating in that sixth wave. That's the software they're running off of. So it's very hard to jump holograms. That's what part of this spiritual awakening is, in realizing what matrix or hologram you're in, and you wanting to get to the next one. When you download a new hologram, that's you evolving. So people who are stuck in this sixth wave, they've stunted their evolutionary process. And that's okay. They will come back and try again, either on this planet or another one, to get out of that hologram. So the sixth wave also created monarchies, slavery, and all that stuff. Okay, moving on to the seventh wave. So the seventh wave came in 1755 of this common era. So the seventh wave, during that, we had the Age of Enlightenment, we had the Industrial Revolution. It introduced materialism, where it could also kind of borderline on atheism. Like, you leave the religious, but you get really stuck into more scientific, where I'm not going to believe it unless I see it. And we started praising wealth and people who are wealthy instead of a spiritual deity or anything like that. So there's still a lot of people in that. It did bring in, advanced technologies on how to manufacture and all that. It brought in electricity and all that. And I love electricity. Nothing wrong with that. But then there's also the distortion, where now we were able to work 24 hours a day because we had artificial lighting. It was all about production, work, and things like that. During this time is when slavery was abolished, all the monarchies fell and all that type of stuff, yet we became a slave to materialism and things like that. So there's always these advances, but then we have the night of that wave when it's on a down wave, and we get the distortion part of it. These are all done to advance the civilizations, but it does come with the highs and the lows. Okay, so the eighth wave, the eighth hologram, came in 1999, not too long ago. This is when we really got into the smart technologies. As you can see now, the amazing things that are happening, like even the difference between the 80s and the 90s, it's just amazing. Like, I had to use a phone, a push button phone or a dial phone, and then by the early 2000s, the technology was mind-blowing. So if you've ever questioned that, like, how did we go from being so stuck in, ages where we just lived primitively, and then, even from the early 1900s to now, how we can talk to people in another country by looking at a handheld computer in our hands. It's due to the holograms that are coming in. People can download the information, technology information. I think like Tesla and even Leonardo da Vinci, how they could see different holograms. You can go in and out of holograms. They were able to access different holograms and see these advanced technologies because they were available, but only certain people in the past could raise their consciousness enough to access these holograms. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So yes, in the past, maybe only shamans could go to these other dimensions or access these other holograms, either because you were initiated by beings and you were chosen to fill that role. Most likely, you chose to be that before you incarnated, or people worked enough to raise their consciousness and figured out how to access these higher matrices or waves. But in 2016, I was shown or told that these are available to everyone now. So it's not just certain individuals. Yes, there were some that accessed them first, but there's always got to be pioneers or whatever. This would be the volunteers, where you didn't even know what was going on. But then after a while, when you get out of fear and you kind of understand, okay, I get it. There's an evolutionary thing happening. And it was a typical shamanic awakening if you read old literature. And you realize, oh, I'm accessing other dimensions. And then when I got this information, I understood the holograms. And a big important part of the seventh hologram is that it's female. And that's why you have seen in the last 20 years the goddess movement really strong, because the sixth wave was very patriarchal and masculine, because we needed to build these civilizations and advance the way we lived, agriculture and all that. So now the eighth wave is balancing that out. We've got to where we have plumbing, electricity, and all that good stuff. We have our technologies and all that. So now the female energy is coming back in to balance out the sixth wave. So we are not going to use these technologies in a destructive way. We're going to use these technologies that we're developing in a different way, because the female energy is coming in with these advanced technologies. And so we're not going to use them for destruction. We're going to use them to promote humanity and the planet. And it's going to be a different way. Okay, so now let's move on to the ninth hologram. So the ninth hologram came in 2011. And a lot of people, were stuck on that 2012 date. But for me, it was very uneventful. I had a great Christmas that year, but that was about it. But 2011 was huge for me. This was before I even knew about these 9 different holograms. My creativity exploded in the beginning of 2011. My twin flame, whatever you want, that we have been going back and forth, came into my life and wanted to get married and everything. So it was like a unity of coming together. And that is what the 9th hologram is. But it didn't work out for reasons, because we were accessing different holograms. And when you're living in 2 different holograms, it's just not going to work out. Moving on. But the 9th hologram is the Unity Hologram. It is an equality. It's economic equality. It's harmony and balance with the earth and other humans. Or it is what people would consider heaven on earth, new earth, or the golden age. This is the one that I like to live in. But to get to each hologram, you have to break through the one you're in, then you go to the next one, you have to get through that one, and you go to the next one, you have to get through that one, then you have to get to the Unity Hologram. So all of you that want to evolve, you have to break through all the belief systems and the hologram, the old software that you're running on. So you would have to drop the 6th hologram, you'd have to drop you against me, war, patriarchy, control, all that stuff. The 7th hologram, and it goes right in line with evolution, you have to drop materialism, being attached to materialism, looking up to people who are rich and famous, and all that. So you see that's a lot going on there. Then you get to the 8th hologram. This is the one where there's a lot of people in this one. You have to balance out the femininity in you, whether you are a man or a woman. Men have to become more vulnerable. You have to develop compassion. And this is when, you start to appreciate the earth and take care of it more. So you would be developing all the healthy traits of what people would consider feminine. You cannot get to the 9th hologram until you go through the 8th. It is a surrendering of all the previous belief systems, how we've been conditioned. So you would have to drop all of we have to be busy, 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 work, strong, powerful, domineering and all that stuff. You have to drop that. You have to soften a little bit and really nurture the feminine side of you. Tap into more of your intuition, get in touch with your soul. You take care of your body, you take care of the planet and all that. That's feminine. And there's a big surrender that happens to that, because we're so conditioned to be reactionary and aggressive, and femininity is more receptive and more observant. Okay, so there's no way to get to the 9th hologram without going through the 8th, which is very female dominated. And so that is why you see so much of that femininity and goddess worship going on. The more people that can get through and keep going through the holograms and get to the 9th hologram, the less effective the lower holograms. And there's tons of people stuck in the 6th hologram. And it also depends on when you were born. When I was born as a child, I could only feel the 6th hologram that my parents were in, and the 7th, because the 8th one wasn't available yet to everyone, or the 9th. Although I do think I was accessing it because I was very different as a child and I saw colors and dimensions and things. So again, the ups and downs, the older holograms, the longer the ups, the longer the downs. The more recent holograms, the ups and downs are much shorter. Enough people get to the upper holograms, the other ones actually become insignificant. You'll have some few rogues running around. So the next, we're in a down cycle of the 8th hologram, the feminine hologram. The next time we're going up is in September of 2020. So things should be shifting and we should be feeling good more around September. But the 9th hologram, it changes every 18 days. So we're going to be up for 18 days, down for 18 days, up for 18 days, down for... So if you're kind of feeling bipolar, that is the 9th hologram where it goes up and down. So we're not in our down cycles very long until we're up again. And the more that you live in that, the highs and lows become, for you consciously, shallower and shallower, and you become kind of more even keeled. Okay, this is a long video. I will talk more about it in detail in future videos, but when I was doing the Patreon Q&A, this made sense to a lot of people and explained a lot of reasons why we see different accelerations throughout the years. If you've questioned how is that possible that we came so far in such a short period of time, it's because of hologram that are now available to everyone. And you can bump in and out of them depending on what you choose. So once you get to the 9th, you can see the lower holograms and you can see there's less judgment because you can see, oh, they're operating in hologram 6. They're in hologram 7. They're stuck in the 8th hologram. You know, you can see it. But in the lower holograms, you can't really see the people or get or understand the people that are in the upper holograms. And that's why your life, when you're operating from an upper hologram, is very different. And you can see New Earth and you can experience things very differently because you are living on a different frequency. And that's why it's hard to be around people who are operating on different software because you just don't get each other. And you don't feel good when you are playing in a lower hologram. You can play in those holograms, but know that you're playing in them and then you go back to your latest software that you've downloaded. So there's a lot of people operating on old software. So if you want to look at it that way. All right. That's a lot of information, and that's all I'm going to talk about in this video. But it's very interesting. If you want to know more about it, this is a great book, The 9 Waves of Creation by Carl Johan Kalaman. And there's a lot of information in there that talks about these 9 waves or 9 holograms. So yeah, ask yourself what hologram or matrix that you think that you are in, and do you want to get to the 9th hologram if you are not yet in it, because it is a great hologram or software to be operating from. But you have to drop anything and everyone that you've been playing with in the old holograms. That's just the way it is. All right, that's it for today, and I will see you on the next video.